like food,
I'm
clothing,
saying
and
I'm coming
learning
up on
materials,
Facebook.
attending school can be a challenge.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I figured you want to do the phone test
Oh,
on
yeah,
Facebook.
absolutely.
Community-
That's when I get the
Thank
call
you.
Pastor now.
Thank you so much.
Ensuring that students have everything they need to re-engage in learning,
Access to technology and school supplies.
and even emotional support.
By bringing communities of support to students, we're achieving equitable learning conditions.
And that's what Communities in Schools is all about.
Learn more at communitiesInschools.org.
Driving it home with Patty Vasquez. Weeknights from 5 to 6 p.m. on WCPT 820.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. Republicans say it's robbing American families. The Democrats' economic package passed the Senate over the weekend, and it looks like the House will pass it this week.
All right, sending Pastor Hatch through.
Okay, and let me know if you can hear us.
Let me pull up Facebook really quick.
President Biden's original domestic goal.
Hey, well, we need to hear if we can hear Pastor Hatch. That's the key, right?
And taxing big corporations.
Right, Pastor, can you hear us?
Can we
Yes,
hear
I
and
can.
can we hear him on the air? How you doing, Pastor Hatch? We're doing a test.
I'm super blessed today. Thank you.
Lost so much. Now some of the families hit hard by the flooding in eastern Kentucky will move.
Okay, on the air and on Facebook, I can hear Pastor Hatch clear as can be.
Okay,
The National
great.
Weather Service
That's
says
great.
more rain appears to be on the
That's
way.
great. That means we are good.
We're not expecting
Okay.
things set up as what we saw
And?
for flooding, but it is a wet and juicy pattern.
Okay. Pastor Hatch, it's great to hear you. I'm sorry, I'm on my last bit of
The three white men
Prep.
who chased and killed Ahmaud Arbery in a Georgia neighborhood will be
So,
sentenced to days
pardon
of
me.
federal hate crimes.
Let's do this.
And what's expected to happen?
The three men already have been sentenced by the state of Georgia to life sentences for the February 2020 shooting of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery. The first to appear for a sentencing hearing today is Travis McMichael, who blasted Arbery with a shotgun after McMichael, his father, and a neighbor chased Arbery down. The three men face possible federal life sentences.
This morning, China is vowing to shatter what it calls Taiwan's illusion of relying on the U.S. for independence. It's continuing its military exercises around Taiwan. This is AP News. Now to a tragedy in southeast Texas. AP correspondent Shelley Adler has the story of 4 people who were killed while riding in a golf cart.
4 people
Oh,
have
Lord.
died and 2 are in critical condition after an SUV hit a golf cart at a Texas intersection. Police say 4 people riding in a golf cart were killed, including 2 juveniles, when an allegedly drunk man driving an SUV ran a stop sign at an intersection in southeast Texas. 45-year-old Miguel Espinosa has been charged with 4 counts of intoxication manslaughter. The wreck happened late Saturday in Galveston. Police say investigators believe that after the SUV failed to stop, it struck the golf cart and a pickup truck. Espinosa was being held in a Galveston County jail on $400,000 bond. I'm Shelley Adler.
And I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Inbound Kennedy traffic is jammed. Canfield to Nagel, there's a crash. Past Nagel, the right lane is blocked. 2 left lanes reopened. Trip time from O'Hare to downtown Chicago is 49 minutes. Outbound 27 with delays. Lawrence to Nagel. Traffic is also slow on westbound 190.
Okay, so there is that.
That's airport traffic. Got Eisenhower
All
traffic.
right. Pastor, how's your family?
Oh, we're doing fine. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, boy.
No.
Little congested at downtown.
Okay.
I-57 northbound traffic is slow. Sauk Trail to Falmer Road after a crash. That's traffic. I'm Jim Calamonte.
The light at the end of the tunnel.
Light at the end of this tunnel.
That light at the end of the tunnel. Your guiding light.
That light is going to get brighter and brighter.
Through another day.
I think it's a great day.
The Joan Esposito Show. Live, local, and progressive. Weekday afternoons at 2 on WCPT 820.
The most effective healthcare is patient-focused. Tomorrow's leading healthcare professionals are doing more than meeting patient expectations. At NRC Health, we help you connect with your patients in a deeper way with important insights into what really matters. It's an approach that's transforming the healthcare.
You know, I've seen a little
60
bug
seconds,
in this bill. How much time, hon?
60.
Okay. They're going to hire many more IRS agents, Pastor.
Yeah, to go after the little guy.
Absolutely.
I've been through those.
We're going to go through much more. 86,000 more they're hiring. 86,000. So that means, well, I can get ready for my audit. Because anyone who says anything is going to be living with these people sitting up in your house.
And you have, if you've been audited, no rights.
10 seconds, everyone.
All your facts.
I don't just wear this shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer.
No rights.
Go to the county.
But they are bound to respect.
None.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Morning Stars, we are back. Hey, we are on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Wow, I'm so glad to be back. Thank you, Jim Addy and the team at WCPT for working it out. Jim Addy is an absolute genius, and we want to thank him for this simple fix. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, everybody, it's great to be with you today. And I'm so glad that my community, that our community can reconnect. Thank you, Chapearl and Marnie, for all that you do and have done to keep things going. Let's talk about the $30 million that the Chicago Public Schools are set to lose in funding. What and who will be cut? We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the Brittany Griner case, which is gaining traction. But we're also going to be talking about Haitian immigrants, Haitian migrants, Haitian asylum seekers. They're being put in jail, you know, as we're welcoming the people from Ukraine, and we should, as we're welcoming European immigrants, and we should. Black and brown immigrants are still being held back, but the Haitian immigrants are being asylum seekers are not only are they being held back, they're being put in detention. This is something Reverend Jackson had to go to Miami about, oh my gosh, 40 years ago. They started having riots, which were prompted by the death of a local Black businessman. But in the middle of that was the fact that Haitians were being held in really subhuman conditions. And we're still doing that. I mean, as we speak. There's a horrible landmark that was passed when you see, I think more than 20,000, let me just get this right, of these migrants, you know, have been put, not of Haitians, but you have 113 Haitians at least in custody, at least 113 of them. Some reports put them back at, say it's a couple hundreds, but you know, we're going to be talking about that. What about this landmark that was passed in which 20,000 of people who are seeking asylum here in the United States are being detained, and they're not being detained in very nice conditions. So we're going to be talking about that today. Everybody, what about this Senate bill? You know, I want to get your thoughts about it. They're going to hire 86,000 more IRS agents. Who do you think they're going to go after? You know they're not going to go after corporations. You know the heads of these corporations don't sit on the phone with the IRS. So while we applaud many aspects of this bill, scaled back as it is, there's some of which we need to be watchful and mindful. Because that could have, you know, when you are under audit by the IRS, that has a chilling effect on free speech, on dissenters. And that's something we need to watch. So we need to ask questions about it. You know, the 86,000 new agents, really? Who are they going to go after? You know that. So let me just say hello to my morning stars who hung in there with me. I just send you so much love. Hey, Carol Soskin says, hallelujah. I think she's about to do a holy dance. Andre, Mark, and Linda, and Dave Dowling, and Jewel, the Gospel Soul Train, and John Cunningham, and Linear Bob. I'm so glad to see you. Miss Cuckoo Robinson, and Robert Williams, and so many of you. Jamaica Funk, love it. Tom Brown, Dave Dowling, hey, sweetie, Linda Holloway, Robert Williams, Facebook user. Yeah, I know it's another name. Joyce Anderson, Angela Thomas, and Lee Michael Washington. Everybody like and share, like and share, like and share. It's good to be back with you this morning. So let's do some of these headlines so we can get some good news from the anointed, brilliant pastor, the Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, everybody. It is Monday, August 8th, 2022. It is going to be a nice day in Chicago. 82 degrees will be the high, but we're going to have some thunderstorms. Monday, Minneapolis, St. Paul, 78 degrees, partly cloudy. Major League Baseball, the White Sox 8, the Rangers 2, the Marlins shut out the Cubs 3-0, and the Blue Jays just barely eked it out over the Minnesota Twins 3-2. In the WNBA, well, the ladies were triumphant from Chicago and Minnesota. The Minnesota Lynx, all right, I love it, 81-71 over the Dream. And the Sky, 94-91 over the Sun. Sending everyone much love today. Got to dedicate the show to Roger Mosley. You remember him from Magnum PI? He made his transition. Sending him much, much, much love today. Of course, Magnum PI, but he had a tremendous career. Of course, he played T.C. Calvin, and he made his transition on Sunday, sending him and his family much love today. At least 68 migrants arrived in New York City over the weekend on buses sent by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, according to New York City Mayor Eric Adams. And some of the migrants are being forced on buses from Texas. Wow. However, Abbott's office says migrants are volunteering to be bussed out of his state. He has designated New York as a drop-off location, as he put it, for the busing strategy as part of his response to the Biden administration's open border policies. Of course, we'll be talking about this, what all of this means on the show today. The school district in Uvalde, Texas, the site of a school massacre in May, is looking for an interim police chief as Pete Arredondo awaits his termination hearing. According to a report, Arredondo was placed on unpaid leave following his highly criticized handling of the shooting at the Robb Elementary School. And there's a ceasefire between Israel and the Islamic Jihad militant group, well, they're called militant according to this report, in Gaza. It's holding after a weekend of violence left dozens of Palestinians dead. So we're going to see, wow, I just wish they could have peace in that part of the world. It just breaks my heart to see no peace, but you got to have Israeli security, Palestinian justice. They're married to each other. The Senate has barely approved a scaled-back legislation on climate, taxes, and health care, everybody. The U.S. Senate barely passed a $430 billion bill intended to fight climate change. Indeed, our Vice President, Kamala Harris, is the one who broke the 50-50 tie. Wow. Well, of course, Kirsten Sinema at the last minute came aboard. So we will see. It's going to empower Medicare to negotiate some drug prices for the first time, cap out-of-pocket costs for many people who need insulin, extend healthcare subsidies for millions of Americans, support massive investments in renewable energy, force corporations to pay at least a 15% tax rate, and create a 1% tax on stock buybacks. But it's also going to empower the IRS to hire 86,000 more agents. What is that going to mean? Do you think they're going to stick them on the corporations? Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. You let me know what you think. In the meantime, of course, Bernie Sanders fought the good fight. He said that this Senate bill is nowhere near, as he put it, enough as Democrats and the GOP joined forces to tank his amendments. He had amendments to expand Medicare and to strip out the giveaways to the fossil fuel industry. They were defeated in near unanimous votes. by Democrats and Republicans. You know, remember, he is the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. He offered amendments that would have removed oil and gas handouts from the reconciliation bill. He would have added dental, hearing, and vision coverage to Medicare. That was shot down. He would have established a civilian conservation corps. He would have strengthened the measure's drug price provisions. He would have revived the expanded child tax credit. He would have hiked the corporate tax rate. All of that was shot down by Democrats and Republicans. This, as 98 million people, according to this Common Dreams report, in the United States have skipped treatment or cut back on essentials to pay for health care this year. That's nearly 100 million people. People are rationing their insulin and things like that. And indeed, GOP senators killed the $35 cap on insulin. Many people cannot afford this. It's not life-changing, it's life-saving. People who need insulin have to have it to preserve their lives. So, well, that was shot down by Democrats and Republicans, everybody. Keep that in mind. And the Indiana governor signed an extreme abortion ban bill last Friday night. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb signed legislation making the state the first in the nation to pass extreme abortion restrictions since Roe v. Wade was overturned. And it was established in a 62-38 vote. The ban, which takes effect on September 15th, includes some exceptions. Abortions will be permitted in cases of rape or incest before 10 weeks post-fertilization to protect the life and physical health of the mother, and if a fetus is diagnosed with a lethal anomaly. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, Pastor Hatch, because I'm like, if you say that you want to save a life, you let the baby be born, right? And then you just see what's going to happen. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. There's just a lot to talk about. But of course, we are so excited to have you this morning. New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago, Illinois. Beautiful cathedral. Urge you to get over there and see it. They have the largest representation of civil rights martyrs in stained glass anywhere in the world. Pastor Marshall Hatch, what is the good news?
Hello, good morning, Santita, and good morning to the audience. And of course, we woke up this morning, and that's a blessing.
Yes.
That's a blessing. We were able to fight the good fights today. And so we thank God. Listen, today I want to just lift up a distinction, and that's grace versus entitlement. Grace versus entitlement. I mean, the premise is how you appropriate what we call in our faith tradition, the grace of God has everything to do with the quality of your life. How you appropriate your understanding of the grace of God, of grace, has everything to do with the quality of your life. And so the question is, do you live with a sense of entitlement, or do you live in the state of grace? Entitlement or grace? Entitlement means I demand all that I think I deserve from the creator of the universe, from God, the creator. I demand all that I deserve from God. Grace, on the other hand, says I've already received from the Creator more than I deserve. In other words, I didn't get what I deserved, but I got more than I deserve. I got an unmerited grace, an unmerited favor. In other words, the state of grace says, as the book of Lamentations in the Bible says, it's the mercies of God that I'm not consumed. It's the mercies of God that I haven't been wiped out. And so the quality of life is determined by what sense do you have and what state do you live in. Do you live in with a sense of entitlement from the Creator, or do you live in the state of grace? God's grace. What do you live in? What do you live under? It matters. This is really like spiritual work, your internal work. Almost all faith traditions have this sense of valuation, this celebration of understanding life as living under a special grace of God, a special sense of the mercies of God. And so this is the spiritual work. This is not the same thing as saying what I deserve in civil society. No, we're talking about the Creator, your personal relationship with your sense of being. And so there are three things that I just lift up briefly. What the state of grace offers the one who embraces, who appropriates, that somehow the Creator has given me more than I deserve. Number one, we live with gratefulness when we appropriate that grace, when we embrace the grace. We're grateful. We live with a sense of gratefulness. In other words, we're thankful for everything. We give thanks in everything. We live literally with an attitude of constant gratitude. I'm just grateful. I'm thankful for the big things, for the little things, for the things that seem like they're insignificant, for the things that seem like they're big and important. I'm grateful for the small blessings that I'm grateful for my little toe and my big toe. I'm just grateful that all of that somehow allows me to function holistically. It's an attitude of gratitude. Gratefulness stems from the state of grace. Number two, joyfulness stems from the state of grace. This cheerfulness, this pleasant spirit is engendered through living in the state of grace. Literally, the passion for living comes from the joyfulness of living in a state of grace. And joy, that's one of my favorite words. It really means energy, zest, zeal for life. Joy animates life. What else matters other than joy? Joy is really the reward that is promised by God for those who labor, who love, who live faithfully. Joy, the substance, the animation, the zeal, the zest for life is not in things, but it's in joy. And then lastly, the state of grace offers purposefulness. Grace is preoccupied with the question, why did the Creator spare me today? What's my purpose? And then the state of grace leads the one who lives in that place to pursue with passion the purpose, the reason, the assignment that I'm alive today. In the scripture, we call it my Redeemer. My Redeemer, the one who has redeemed me, who has decided that I should remain alive, that I was worth being alive one more day in this season. The Redeemer has a plan for my life. And so I just want to close out with, I woke up this morning, not just in my house, not just in Chicago, not just in the state of Illinois, but I woke up in the state of grace.
Amen.
And I'm grateful. And I'm joyful. And I'm purposeful. Praise God.
And I'm here. And there's a reason for it.
And I'm here.
New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. What is the address so that we can come and hear this in person and see that beautiful cathedral?
We're 4301 West Washington Boulevard, Chicago, 60624 on the great west side of Chicago.
All right. Pastor, Reverend, Dr. Marshall Hatch doing great things at the New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. I urge you to get over there. It is an absolutely magnificent ministry that he is leading, and it's a beautiful, beautiful cathedral. It's a place that all of Chicago, anyone who visits Chicago, you need to see it. You need to see these stained glass representations of our martyrs. And blessings to you, Pastor Marshall Hatch. We have got Dr. Shanita Knighton. I'm sending you much love, you and the First Lady and that beautiful family of yours. We've got Dr. Shanita Knighton, and Dr. Knighton has been on the road. She was with Dr. Furholden, sending her much love today, sending you much love. I have a question for you because everybody I talk to in New York talks about COVID, at least for a couple of minutes. And we've been watching the president. And I keep bringing this up because when I'm around people are unmasked. And they say, well, I've vaxxed, I'm boosted. And I'm like, but you can still spread it, and you can still get it and you can still get sick. How long do you stay in isolation?
Good morning. So I was going to say, the thing is we know that we're still waiting on, let's say CDC to come out with maybe some different recommendations. However, the time frame which we see being floated around, and when I say floated around, there is the notion per se that when you are ill, there's a period of when you are contagious, there is a period of when you are infectious, and then there's a period of when you are dormant. In this particular instance, I know that the controversy was, if you're asymptomatic, go back to work after 5 days. And the thought process is that if you don't start showing symptoms within that time frame, which is average, then you're likely not going to show symptoms. However, the thing is if you are someone that is symptomatic, it's really being aware of what does symptomatic mean, right? So I've seen people get an itch in their throat and they're like, I had COVID, but only thing that happened was my throat was itchy and they went back to work the next day. No, that is being symptomatic. And so now you have to ask yourself, are you waiting on your symptoms to resolve after your throat is itchy, meaning your throat stopped being itchy and then that's when your clock starts for your 5 days? To me, that makes the most logical sense because then that means that if there is, let's say, a cough or something that is lingering, you're actually waiting for that to resolve to make sure that your viral shedding, which I continue to keep talking about, is decreasing so that way you're not at risk for making others sick. And so in a nutshell, there's no everybody needs to do it for X amount of days. It is just understanding that if you are symptomatic, you should be waiting for those symptoms to resolve to start your clock. And that should also be in tandem with a negative test. So there should be multiple confirmatory things that you are doing to ensure that you are no longer or you're decreasing the risk of getting someone else sick and spreading virus.
So when people say that they're vaxxed and boosted, I've got a minute left here. What do you think their understanding is, and what is the understanding?
I'm not sure what their understanding is, but the thing is that should be an understanding that protects your body system, but it does not protect you from spreading COVID. It does not stop your nose, your mouth, and your hands from spreading COVID, which is another reason why those entities should be kept safe while you're doing so. And
another reason why you should mask everybody. When they say that,
properly.
The mask properly. That's right. Don't wear the mask. What for? Ever? Unbelievable. Dr. Knighton, how can we get in touch with you on social media?
So I am at the hashtag #HeyDrNina, where I will provide some late updates on best practices of things to do. As you can imagine, these children are getting ready to go back to school. Mm-hmm. So educators are getting ready to go back. So it's the time to start having those conversations now in regards to what does safety look like as these individuals begin to dwell. And then not only just that, if they start thinking through the school year as they'll spend more and more time at school, how does that look in terms of being safe? So there aren't these, I would say, intermittent days of remote learning, which a lot of us have experienced randomly because there's an outbreak at the school, or it's just recommended that randomly they don't go because there's some sort of infection. And so I'm hoping that schools are coming out with that plan in regards to looking at the numbers last year, saying what was our infectivity rate, and potentially maybe what weeks do we need to plan for a remote in order to make sure we're keeping the maximum amount of people safe from COVID. So I do
I'm sorry.
hope that that's happening, but we all know that we unfortunately live in a reactive society opposed to a proactive one. So we'll see.
Well, you know what I hope we can make the time to do is to talk about what parents need to know for their children going into the school year. Because we are here, everybody. Our children are starting to go back to school right now. Sending much love to Dr. Shanina Knighton. Let's talk about the $30 million that Chicago Public Schools are slated to lose. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Like and share the show, everybody. Back in a minute.
Tune into the Tom Hartman radio program, your home for news, opinion.
Hey, girl, how you doing? I'm sorry. I had the week last week. I wish I was going to try and call you all, but I couldn't do it. I've had a crazy week. I've had to leave town. I've got to go to Detroit as soon as I get off the air here. I was supposed to have someone come in and help hiring someone to paint my ceilings and all of that. But now I've got to run up to Detroit very, very quickly. But I've got to do it. My father called me 5 o'clock this morning. Would you mind? I'm like, of course not. So I got to literally jump off the air and jump there. But it was wonderful seeing you, and you looked absolutely beautiful in your picture.
Oh, thank you.
You are very, very welcome, sweetie.
Oh my gosh, she should have seen me. I was so happy to see her. I gave her like this big extended hug. And good. So I was very happy to just see her, and for her to just welcome me into her physical life, right? And
absolutely.
That difference. And I'm just grateful for that. Like I really am. And really at this point, just working on getting, I would say, life together. So I've had good news that has come through in terms of funding and different awards. And so this week I'll be at the Summer Institute and be recognized for being a VA Rising star, which is it's for the VA Quality Scholars Program. It's a national program. And so I'm getting an award for what it is I contributed to the field within my first 7 years of being in the field. So,
I wish you would send that to me so that we can acknowledge it. It's important for people to know. Okay.
It is, but you know how that is where they be wanting you to do, they got to do the press release.
Okay, no, once they do it, send it to me. Because we need to acknowledge that. Because remember, not only do people need to know what you're doing and how you're being acknowledged, it helps them to have a greater understanding, a depth of understanding of infection prevention and infection preventionists and what you do. You're someone we didn't even know you existed before. Dr. Deb, she didn't know you existed. And that helps us a lot. And it helps us to, when all of us in our various spaces like Effie Rolfe.
Through Commissioner Johnson, Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Byer, and Chaparral.
Fantastic. These are people I'm going to have to let you go, but they can begin to Effie Rolfe is a legend in radio, and she can begin to mention you, and then parents will hear because she's got tremendous influence, and then parents will go to meetings and ask why an infection preventionist is not there. You see what I mean? It just resonates. And people need to know.
50 seconds.
Oh, okay. I'm bouncing, but
we want to tell people they are available.
What?
No, I'm saying infection preventionists are available, like they are around.
Absolutely,
so.
but we have to know that you exist because we don't know.
Yeah.
So
and people have to be willing to pay. So that's the other piece of it too.
Well, let them know that you exist, and then we'll take care of the rest. Getting folks to pay is a lot, but that's a whole different thing. But let me do that. So I got that. All right, sweetie, I love you. You can listen.
Awesome.
We're talking about all this money that the Chicago Public Schools are losing. So, Dr. Byer, girl, it's terrible. These folks are terrible. Dr. Byer and Dr. Whitaker and Commissioner Johnson.
Hi, good morning.
Sending you all much love today. Stand by. We're coming up. I was just talking to someone you all need to have in the system, an infection preventionist. We've talked to everybody, Dr. Whitaker, but her.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, and welcome back to Facebook and YouTube. Yay! Everybody, meet us over on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We've been gone for 5 months. Been trying to work this out with WCPT. I'm so glad that we've been able to finally do it. But Facebook is really the issue. They have changed their policies, and it's just it can be difficult. But other shows have been able to broadcast, but we just haven't been. So I'm so grateful to Jim Addy for working that out. Everybody, I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. All of my morning stars, everybody, Dave Dowling, Effie, Debbie, everybody, Jewel from New York, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, Facebook user from the east side of Detroit. Love it. Please like and share the show with at least one person. Please do it right now. Everybody like and share, like and share, like and share. And all of those of you who are listening to us in Radio Land, please tell people about us. Please do that. And I want to thank Chapearl, Celebrations by Us, everybody this weekend. She did something that I cannot believe she did. She brought me some greens and oxtails. And the oxtails were Dr. Whitaker, Commissioner Johnson, Dr. Byer. They were about the best I've ever had. And I can't wait to have the rest of them for lunch today. Oh my gosh, they were exquisite. Thank you, Chapearl.
Thank you, Santita. I tell you, I'm so happy to be able to provide that for you. And I know it's just a small token of my appreciation, but truly, truly, I appreciate you and your show. And Celebrations by Us is currently on vacation this week, but we'll be back on the 15th.
Oh, so I can't ask for any more. Oh, okay, I got it.
But we are still taking your orders for anything after the 15th. We're still doing our trunk parties. We have a couple of trunk parties next weekend that we're doing to send our kids off to college, and we're doing complete suite tables, backdrops, as well as also balloon arches. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. And we're still doing your full meals, as well as also, like Santita said, your greens, your oxtail, as well as also your barbecue ribs and your beef ribs, your mac and cheese, your mazzatoli, whatever it is that you need for your table. And don't forget about our famous sweets, our caramel cakes and red velvet cake, and our cookie platters. So call us at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. Thanks so much, Santita.
Oh, thank you, 708-526-4546. Sending much love to you, and thank you so much for that. Chicago public schools are expected to lose $30 million in expected state funding. $30 million. What will that mean? How did this happen? Let's pull this wonderful panel together. We've got Dr. Sonia Whitaker, former superintendent of schools, but she's now the national education director for the Push Excel program from Rainbow Push, nationally renowned educator. And we have another nationally renowned educator, Dr. Michael Byer, who's been on the show before, former CPS principal, and now he's an education consultant, but a great fighter for our children and our families. And I'm going to start with you, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. When I met you, you were a teacher and a union leader, but you have children. I mean, there were so many concerns that you had about our children. Help me to understand what losing $30 million. I mean, it's already tight, Commissioner Johnson. It's already tight. $30 million. That's a lot. Or am I dreaming? Having a nightmare.
It really is. Unfortunately, we've been in a perpetual state of a nightmare in Chicago for some time. And there are a variety of things that have, tremendous and profound impact on our families. One of the most, dynamic opportunities that we have in this state, and particularly in Chicago, is to provide a type of, fully funded, well-resourced education system imaginable. Unfortunately, the politics of today, as well as the lack of imagination, and quite frankly, the lack of priority, has been a tremendous hindrance to families like mine across this city of being able to access a school that has all of the amenities that everyone is in agreement with. The challenge with this moment is not just simply the $30 million that's being ripped away from families across the city of Chicago. We're also dealing with the type of incompetence that has caused the Chicago Public Schools to have to return money that they've already paid back to the state. Now, that might be a subject for another day, but I just want to.
I'm willing to have that.
Yeah, so just to offer up some context, because of the way the school-based funding formulas, as well as this new funding formula, has been situated, there's been a miscalculation by a so-called miscalculation by the Chicago Public Schools, in which the state of Illinois has come to quote unquote rectify. Basically, CPS was paid more than what it should have received. Now, folks like us who've been fighting for adequate funding for years in the system, the thought of CPS being overpaid, I mean, that is certainly an incredible contradiction, and it's certainly an oxymoron at the very least. But what it really is a tragedy, because now the state of Illinois is coming for that bill. We're talking about millions of dollars, conservatively $45 million, but as much as $80 million that they are charging CPS to pay back. On top of that repayment that CPS is now obligated to render. Now we're dealing with a circumstance like we've dealt with for decades in this city, where every single year working class families are being told that we don't have enough for our children. And so to your direct question, the impact that that's going to have, and I'm sure Dr. Byer and Dr. Whitaker will signify this, we're talking about losing adults in critical programs. Those programs are attached to salaries. Without those programs, or without individuals who can actually administer those programs, we're going to have significantly less opportunities for our children. And those are things as simple as social workers, counselors, nurses, classroom teachers. We're seeing so much chaos in these systems because they haven't been managed properly, where you have assistant principals that have to fill in because they don't have a technology teacher, or when a teacher takes a day off because of an illness or whatever personal matter that they might be confronted with, we do not have enough substitute teachers. We are literally in the midst of a crisis where we're already being obligated to repay money that ostensibly the system should not have had. And now you have a formula structure that has placed the largest school district in the state of Illinois in tremendous peril. So it's a frustrating phenomenon, but it's one of those perennial dynamics that we're constantly having to confront. And unless we're clear about revenue sources, as well as, here's the most important thing, if we're really clear about the need for the dynamic of equity, which equity obviously challenges us, that students who need more, families that need more, that our appropriations should reflect that. And that's the challenge that we have at every level of government. Santita, I'm dealing with a $9 billion budget every single day. Mm-hmm. And that is the rub that we deal with when it comes to healthcare, particularly mental health care related services, jobs, and housing. We have to be intentional about making sure we're delivering in neighborhoods who have been devastated the most by structural inequality. And so it's going to have a profound impact on our communities, but it's really going to require some action from our legislative bodies to do right by families who are in desperate need right now.
Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, former teacher, union leader, now Cook County Commissioner. He has seen up close and personal, but he also now has another kind of aerial view of being a Cook County Commissioner. This is one of the largest budgets in the world that over which he has say. He represents you. Dr. Michael Byer, before we get to Dr. Whitaker, talk to me as a former principal, as a principal, as an educator, when you hear that $30 billion is going to be cut from a system that is already found wanting, where you need more resources, not less. I keep thinking about the billions of dollars that are just forked over to the Pentagon. We don't know where it's going. We don't know why. And without even asking for the money, they get it. But, education next to Homeland Security was the last cabinet level department brought to the cabinet level by the president. We just don't education. What is losing $30 million in the Chicago public schools?
Yeah,
what does that mean? What would that look like to you?
Well, you divide it evenly across all schools. That's probably, I'm just guesstimating right now, but that's probably losing one adult from every school building, right? $30 million is a lot of money. It's not a lot, like you said, compared to the Pentagon, compared to other departments in the federal, even the state budget, compared to CPD, compared to the money we spend on jails and prisons and whatnot. $30 million isn't a lot for that. But in CPS, that's about losing one adult at every school building. And unfortunately, schools are run like businesses. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying schools should not be run efficiently, but what they do is schools, and Chicago has led the nation in this, in running schools like businesses, which is, the notion is that, if you have no customers to your restaurant and you send the staff home, that makes sense, right? But with the school, you can't just cut people because, as Commissioner Johnson said, you need certain positions in every school to make them functional. Anything less than these positions, they actually become dangerous. We've operated without nurses in every school for decades, right? I've had children come to us with bloody noses, and the one nurse we had on staff who was there that one day of the week, I said, "Can you help this child with a bloody face?" And the nurse said, "I'm sorry, I can't. Here are some Band-Aids. I have to focus on the paperwork." Right? They're actually dangerous when you get to a certain point. And so you can't just cut staff just because you lost money. And fortunately, from my understanding is Chicago has a whole pile of money reserved from COVID. Now's the time to use that. But unfortunately, we're in this mindset in Chicago of treating it like business and cutting it from schools. And now we're in a death spiral. Another report was just released recently of the under-enrollment. Manly High School has something like 60 kids. You can't run a high school effectively or safely where kids are actually learning everything they can without at least 300 kids in the building. And so what that's causing is you have under-enrolled schools. Parents do not want to send their kids to those schools. So we have a mass exodus from Chicago, predominantly of our families struggling with poverty, or Black and brown families who are leaving, causing further under-enrollment, causing further losses of budgets to the schools, and it's a death spiral. And you have, as Commissioner Johnson said, there's a complete lack of imagination. CPS leadership has for decades not led by looking forward, but by walking backwards and always looking back at the last traumatic event. And in this case, we're looking at school closings that were just handled horribly by Mayor Emanuel. And so now the union and the district have agreed not to close schools when that's actually not in the best interest of the students. You need a high school with at least, ideally, 500, 600 kids, minimum. And even then, it's hard to function. You need elementary schools with 300 kids. And that's just to bring life to the school. And I'm even talking about budgets. What kid wants to go to a school where there's only 50 kids in the building? I mean, that can be effective, maybe, but it's not. You just can't run a school like that. And so half the city is in a death spiral when it comes to education. And then you have leadership who they're just going to cut money with, a hacksaw. They're not going to do it with a scalpel. They're going to say they did. And budgets, as a principal, have been a nightmare. That's one thing Dr. Jackson, the CEO, that's one thing she fixed after a dozen other superintendents. As principals, for several years, we were getting our budgets in like June or July. And we were forced to create all the positions and then hire in about 2 or 3 months of time, which is impossible, especially when every single town and district around you are hiring back in the spring. She was the first CEO in a number of years who finally got her budgets released earlier in the spring. And so our budget process, I don't know who's running that down there, but I mean, someone's got to take a good look at that because it's insane. So for this to happen, and this is this year, $30 million. There was a report that came out a while ago that the state messed up and they owed, I think it was another $34 million from last year. So we got $30 million bills, IOUs piling up year after year after year. Mm-hmm. It's not looking good.
You know, as I go to Dr. Sonia Whitaker, former superintendent of schools, and she is now the National Education Policy Director for the Push Excel program, Push for Excellence program, from Rainbow Push, nationally renowned program. I'd like to ask, you know, Commissioner and Dr. Beyer and Dr. Whitaker, if you could come back tomorrow, because we're going back into school. This is a critical discussion that I think that we've got to dig down in this, because I think that parents need to know what's in the budget. You know, I come from a little grammar school, John J. Pershing School. It's 3113 South Rhodes. Now it's 3113 South Cottage Grove. And today it was next to what was the Michael Reese Hospital. Today it is it's no longer school. And it just breaks my heart because, you know, we had a big class, Dr. Whitaker. There were like 32 kids in my graduating class. But my class was divided between Mr. Bryce and Miss Harrison. And it was a very small school, but what was Mrs. Anita Beard headed up the PTA. I have to call her name because she was so active, and that PTA was so active. They knew everything, and they pushed to get the best for the children. But parents have to know, you know, $30 million, that's a lot of money. And as Dr. Beyer was just telling us, and as Commissioner Johnson said, you're losing invaluable employees at the school. It could be teachers, it could be support staff. You need them all. And we don't have nurses. We don't have librarians. I mean, that's no way to run a school. Dr. Whitaker, what do you see?
Absolutely. So my initial response to that, I want to validate something that I heard spoken to just a moment ago, and that is, first of all, the use of the term structural inequalities. Mm-hmm. You know, across our nation's schools today, the educators, in many but not all cases, are attempting to raise their consciousness as it relates to what it takes to create a culturally responsive learning environment for students. So I think I would be remiss if I did not say, although perhaps unintentional at the state level, I would like to go on the record and suggest that this would be a prime example of structural inequalities as its finest. With that being said, the other point that I want to make is related to the very important point you made regarding parents' right to know. The first thing that came to my mind outside of this being a primary example of structural inequalities was what is actually being cut. Mm-hmm. Our parents are intelligent. They deserve, in order for them to advocate, what are they advocating for? I think that they should be called to the table. I think we should acknowledge and then move beyond the actual number in terms of how much is being cut, and now narrow down and drill into conversations about what programs are being cut and who do you need to go to be clear about your intent as a parent to advocate on behalf of your child as it relates to those programming options being cut. The final point that I want to make is related to my understanding that in part, this new change in funding, which didn't come from the federal government, but came from leadership in the state of Illinois, ultimately resulted in one thing in particular being taken into consideration, and that is student enrollment. We are clearly aware that thousands of students went missing during COVID. So how can we be non-responsive? My area of expertise amongst many is cultural responsiveness. How can we say as an organization or institution that we are being responsive at the highest level possible when we have not taken into consideration that thousands of students are missing from CPS and made the necessary adjustment in our policy decisions? Oh, I'm so sorry, Santita. I'm on 10 about this topic in particular.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, but that's why I want to revisit it. Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Byer,
And this is heavy.
yeah, it's a big deal. And then, because I think I went straight through public schools, K through 12, and had a tremendous experience there and got a great education that made me, quite frankly, Commissioner Johnson, Dr. Byer, and Dr. Whitaker. It made me nationally competitive. I got admitted to Ivy League schools for whatever, for whatever that's worth. Well, no, look, I took a full scholarship from a black school. Okay, so my parents met, black schools have produced Dr. King, Jesse Jackson, Maynard Jackson, Andrew Young, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So look, I'm an HBCU baby. That having been said, I'm saying it's possible to come out as a merit scholar and all of that. I've seen that, but I see this dilution and diminution, if you will, of public education. And that to me is very, very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Let me start with you, Dr. Byer, and you, Dr. Whitaker, and then I'm going to give the final word to Commissioner Johnson. And I would like to get you all back on tomorrow or sometime in the next few days, because I think this is something we need to make education, Dr. Byer, a top priority. It needs to be at the center of our conversation.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what can we do to move the needle? Because it's not fair. I mean, and like I said, I mentioned the Pentagon because they get money they don't even ask for. And these wars benefit their contractors. In the meantime, you're begging for crumbs. We can't even get our children educated. They can't get you don't have a nurse in a school. Kids have asthma. Kids have diabetes. They have all kinds. They have sickle cell anemia. They have crises, and no one is there to help them. That's murderous. And yes, I'm saying that. As a talk show host, I can say that. For 1 minute, it belongs to you, Dr. Byer.
What can be done? That's a big question. You don't have to come back for that. I think what's been said, which is we do need the parents involved. We need everyone at the table. We need the union, the leadership, and the parents to come to the table with a genuinely equitable conversation to seek collaborative solutions. And they do that in small scale, behind closed doors, with the parents they select, with the union leaders they select, or I should rather say teachers and principals they select. But they need, this is one reason why we're going to end up with an elected school board, is because people have forced to finally say, we demand to be at a table. But we can't wait that long until elect a school board. That can happen now. It should have happened now. Mm-hmm. We need to have people come to the table, and it needs to be open and transparent, not hidden behind closed doors. Lightfoot can't worry about her next election. Let's just put it all on the table and try to figure it out together as a community, as a city.
Amen to that. The last literally 60 seconds belong to you, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Santita, we'll definitely be back whenever you want us. And I'm sure to your dismay and to some of the West Siders, my son will not be attending Whitney Young. He is a Kenwood Bronco officially. So take that.
That's a tragedy.
The dynamic that you're talking about is in Austin, where my wife and I are raising our family. We have what we call $100 million blocks. That's how much money has been invested in our community around policing, incarceration, and jails, while children are skipping over buildings because there aren't resources there to find a public neighborhood school that they can feel proud of. So it's a matter of priority. And when you're talking about, to Dr. Byer's point, $1 billion minimally that the federal government sent to the Chicago public schools in care of the mayor of Chicago, and that money is still sitting there wasting away while we're looking for positions, it's unconscionable and irresponsible. So we got work to do, clearly.
Is there anything that you can do as a commissioner? Because you give the mayor the budget. Is there anything that you can do to force the mayor to give the money, that unused COVID money?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we're trying to do is be an example. Unfortunately, because the county board of commissioners, we don't have jurisdiction over the schools like in some other counties. We can be an example. We're releasing $100 million just this week alone on violence prevention that will help with homeless students, that will help with healthcare, that will help hire people to serve our community. The ARPA money that we have received at the county level, we're spending that money. We're investing it into the people who need it the most. So the best thing that we can do is be an example for the rest of the state. And hopefully the city of Chicago, state of Illinois will look at the leadership that I've provided at the county level and use it as a model.
Well, when you come back, I want you all to go through the budget and help us to understand where the money is going. And, you know, and we need more schools. We don't need fewer schools. We need more schools. Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, Dr. Michael Bayer, excuse me. I always want to call you Bayer, like Bayer's aspirin, but you make me feel better. And Dr. Sonia Whitaker, National Education Policy Director for Rainbow Push. We're going to continue this education conversation, but now let's talk about Brittany Griner. Let's talk about the Haitians who are being detained, put in jail because they're trying to seek asylum in the United States. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes, and we're back up on Facebook and YouTube. Yay!
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. When thinking of the revolution.
Thank you all. I'm going to reach back out to you because I might shift this to 7 o'clock. I don't know, but I want to have this conversation with you all about education. Because there's just so much that we don't know. And I think about my PTA in my grammar school, and boy, they were active. Mrs. Beard did not take any prisoners at all. And everybody has done extremely well coming out of that school. Everybody, just about everybody. It was a top-notch school. Everybody went to. Most of us, well, only a few of us anyway. We went to Whitney Young and went to these schools. I remember Theron Toole, he went to St. Ignatius from Pershing, and he left college after 3 years just to go to med school because Theron just wanted to go on to be a physician. He came back and finished, but he said, I've taken the MCATs. I've done everything. Pershing produced those kind of students. And I think that, these schools are capable of doing that. So I'm going to let you all go because we need these lines, but I'm going to reach back out to you a little bit later on today because I really, Commissioner, I know that you've got a lot going on, but, and Dr. Bayer and Dr. Whitaker. But I think this is when I saw $30 million, my eyes popped. I said, wait. I said, we can't afford this. But there is, and I'm gonna tell you, they are not defunding prep schools. You go on these prep school campuses, they look like the best university campuses, and that's what they are. And they prepare you to run the world. I've been there. And all children deserve that.
Absolutely.
They get the best meals, they get everything. Oh, their parents pay for it. We pay for this too. And if we can pay trillions of dollars for wars that we did not ask for, yeah, we can get we should have limitless money to educate our children, academically and vocationally.
Sending Attorney Patillo, Attorney Hoffler, and Attorney Jones through.
Okay, I'm going to let them go because do you need these lines? Will people be able to call on these lines that Dr. Bayer and Cook County Commissioner Johnson?
We only have 2 phone lines open is the thing though now because of it.
Okay, well then you know what, I'm going to let them go. Let me let them go, and then if you can get our people back up so we can get them from the bottom. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so patient.
Thank you.
Okay, God bless. You'll hear from me later on today. Dave Dowling, I did not know that you have been going through so much over the past few months. I'm sending you much love today. Sending you much love. He's been taking care of his parents, as all of you can see. And they have gone on to heaven. And I just want to send you some love, Dave Dowling. Thank you so much. We're just praying for you. You got the ultimate prayer warrior with in Effie Rolfe, but still, just want you to know we love you and we're thinking about you. Oh boy! Now, who do I have on with me? Is this Attorney Patillo or is this Attorney Jones?
Attorney Hoffler, Attorney Patillo, and we got Attorney Jones back.
Okay, all right. Attorney Hoffler?
Good morning. How are you, Santita?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you, Attorney Hoffler?
I'm good.
Okay. You sound great. You sound great. We were just talking about these Chicago public schools are going to lose yet more money. It's just, this is We can't find
Do
money.
they have money to lose?
Girl, they're losing $30 million. And then, you know, when I think about how Mary Emanuel closed the schools, and he said 25% of the kids aren't going to make it anyway. It was so cold and awful. And the schools were closed in the Black community, and they were the names of historical Black figures. Oh, it was awful. It is awful. 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 It's awful. And then to say that most of these kids, or a big chunk of them, aren't going to make it anyway. I was like, I don't know what everybody's insult level is, but I'm insulted. You know, so it's a lot. You know.
You know, people have always given up on our Black children, and we've always surprised them. But you certainly don't want it to be intentional and deliberate, because there will be many that will fall through the cracks.
Absolutely. And then, you know, you had other things going on in the culture that helped to mitigate that, which we have less and less of today. You know, a lot of people are walking around with their fists in the air, but the Black pride, you know, the pride that was driving our parents, a lot of us don't have it, but a lot of us do. But, you know, we have to, my father has often said we were in slavery longer than we have been free. And so what we have to do is really understand, you know, I guess I'm looking for the word.
60 seconds.
We have to learn how to be citizens. That is after, indeed, after LBJ signed the Voting Rights Act, that was read his speech to America and to Black leaders who were present in the room. He said, now go home and teach the Negro people to be citizens. Wow. And we were only full citizens when we got the vote.
Yep.
So there we go. And so I'm going to get right to this and get right to y'all. So thank you. And Robert, thank you for sending me this story on the Haitian migrants. I tried to get Anastasia Sanat, but she was working this morning. Stand by. We're coming up.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, and welcome back to what? Facebook and YouTube. We're back up, everybody. Like and share, like and share. I'm so glad to be with you today. And it just gives the Santita Jackson Morning Stars an opportunity to connect on air. Sending you much love, everybody. Dave Dowling, Renee, Maria, everybody. Please, 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 please like and share this show. Like and share this show today. And everybody who's listening to us, please tell people about us. And, you know, got to dedicate the show in a special way to Dave Dowling. I just found out that over the last 4 years, he's been helping his parents as they have been, you know, moving into the years of their later lives. And his dad passed away 3 years ago, and his mom passed away last month. So everybody, all the morning stars, send Dave Dowling some love. Send him some love. He said that's why he hasn't been here over the past few months, and we haven't been here either. But we've been on the air, and I just want to send you some love, Dave Dowling. And Medi, our own Medi Rodriguez, attorney Medi Rodriguez, has been having some health challenges of late. Everybody reach out to her, send her a prayer, send her some love, send her some good energy. We love you, Medi. Sending you much love today. Everybody, it's Monday, August 8th, 2022. I'm Santita Jackson. We have been talking about the Chicago Public Schools and the $30 million that they are about to lose. We've got some good news about the importance of grace from Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch. But right now we're going to be talking about the Haitian migrants, the Haitian asylum seekers who are being put in jail. That's what we do with Haitians. And we welcome Ukrainian asylum seekers at the border in Mexico. They're being allowed to come in. But the Black and brown people, they're being pushed back. And the Haitians, when they get here, they are being detained. That's been happening for decades. What's going on with that? And Brittany Griner, the latest on her case. I'm Santita Jackson. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's get a few of these headlines out the way so that we can get to the rest of the show in Chicago. We're going to have thunderstorms today, but it will be 82 degrees. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 78 degrees, partly cloudy. In Major League Baseball, the White Sox 8, the Rangers 2, the Marlins shut out the Cubs 3-0. And the Blue Jays, well, they were barely triumphant over the Twins 3-2. In the WNBA, well, the ladies brought it home for Minneapolis, St. Paul, and for Chicago. The Lynx 81, the Dream 71, and the Sky 94, and the Sun 91, everybody. The Senate on Sunday afternoon passed the Democrats' $750 billion health care tax and climate bill in a significant victory for President Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. According to this CNN report, the final party line vote was 51-50. Of course, the tie was broken by Vice President Kamala Harris. The Democratic-controlled House, which is expected to take up the legislation on Friday, must approve the bill before the president can sign it into law. The bill would be the biggest climate investment in U.S. history, slashing U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. And the legislation would impose a 15% minimum tax on the income that large corporations report to shareholders. But guess what else is going to happen? 86,000 more IRS agents will be hired. Who do you think they're going to be focusing on? That's a story too, everybody. The Senate barely approved this legislation, but they did approve it, and it's a big win, as you're hearing, for President Biden. But what's really in it, everybody? In the meantime, Bernie Sanders said that this Senate bill is nowhere near enough as the Democrats and the Republicans joined hands to tank his amendments. Now, his amendments, and remember, he's the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, he would have removed oil and gas handouts from the reconciliation bill. He would have added dental, hearing, and vision coverage to Medicare. He would have established a civilian conservation corps. He would have strengthened the measure's drug price provisions. He would have revived the expanded child tax credit, and he would have hiked the corporate tax rate. And he said the most significant part of this bill is an unprecedented $3 billion investment in clean energy and energy efficiency. So, the Democrats and the Republicans came together and said no to Bernie, and more than that, they said no to you. As 98 million persons in America skipped treatment or cut back on essentials to pay for health care this year. That's almost 100 million people, everybody. GOP senators killed the $35 cap on insulin as people are now rationing their insulin. So we're going to have to see what's going on. In the meantime, in Indiana, the most restrictive abortion ban bill has been signed into existence on Friday night by Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, everybody. The ban, which takes place on September 15th, includes some exceptions. Abortions will be permitted in cases of rape or incest before 10 weeks post-fertilization. After that, gotta have that baby to protect the life and physical health of the mother. And if a fetus is diagnosed with a lethal anomaly, that's interesting. You kill the child if they might have a challenge. Something about that is not very life-friendly. But 86,000 agents will be hired by the IRS. What do you think about that, everybody? It's a hiring surge. Who are they going to go after? You always have to look, everybody. You always have to look. So let's get right to it, everybody. Why are Haitian migrants in custody? Why are they being held in custody after they have been seeking asylum here in the United States? And what is going on with Brittany Griner? But let's start with the Haitian migrants, because they are being held in custody. And this is something that we see over and over and over again. And we need to know why it is that these Haitian migrants, they can't get they have such a hard time getting into the United States. I mean, you got to tell me, you got to help me with that. Help me with that. We have got attorney Daryl Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Of course, we got C.K. Hoffler, who is the chair of Rainbow Push, immediate past president of the National Bar Association. Let's start with you, Robert Patillo. You brought this to me, and I just want to know, What's the deal?
This is interesting because it's really more coordinated event when it comes to mass migration that we've seen since the 90s, since the quote unquote Haitian boat people crisis. For those of you who remember that, being a Haitian child in school at the time, did not appreciate the jokes, in case anybody was wondering. But about 330 migrants showed up on the coast of Florida, Florida Keys, in 16 different craft. Now, these were not just Haitians, there were Haitians and Cubans. The problem is that because of U.S. policy, the Cubans were given wet foot, dry foot status, as in they were taken in and processed through immigration. The Haitians, however, were detained and are currently in custody and will be put through deportation proceedings. We have to find a better way to differentiate and to process our migrants on our southern borders. We have to start focusing on a comprehensive immigration reform policy that will fix many of these issues. We have to look at fixing our asylum system so there's at least some level of equality in the system where we're not just simply looking at people's skin color when they arrive at the southern border. And one group gets one status, another group basically gets sent back to the political environment that they were fleeing at that time. And I think that what many of us in the Caribbean community hoped for was that having the most powerful Caribbean woman in the history of Earth, Kamala Harris, being the vice president of Jamaican descent, having a press secretary who's of Haitian descent, that there will be some focus by the administration on changing these policies, particularly going into a midterm election where Haitian voters in Florida will have a large amount of sway over whether or not Val Demings is the next United States senator, or if we're sending Marco Rubio back. It seems that the administration and the Democratic Party have no interest in making this a political issue of trying to help these migrant groups. And between last year's images of Haitians at the border being chased on horseback, this year's images of boats full of people being rounded up and detained, I'm not quite sure what the administration's strategy is when it comes to fixing these issues, and also when it comes to looking at what's going on in their hegemonic sphere of influence that's driving these crises, the political instability which is still taking place as a result of U.S. policy, both in Central and South America and throughout the Caribbean. And it's interesting to me that the U.S., for example, caused the political disruption in Cuba, and because of that, their policy is to take in Cubans. They caused political instability in Haiti, but the policy is to basically arrest, detain, and then immediately deport those Haitians out of the country. And I can't understand for the life of me how this is not a bigger political issue, along with all the other things that are on the plate of the Democratic agenda. It's great that we got the climate change bill done. I support policies that will help and ameliorate climate change. At the same time, I would love to see the same focus being put into helping people in the here and now. Well, climate change might kill us all in 50 years. There are people who are dying today who also need legislative help, and that can be put on the political agenda, but currently are not being done so.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I mean, I was reading an article in which I saw that between Inauguration Day 2021 and February of 2022, the Biden administration sent back to Haiti 20,000 migrants, and those numbers have gone up 20,000 in a year. And now we see that these Haitians, we saw this 40 years ago, they're put in detention. Please explain, help me to understand that, the policy behind that.
Well, good morning, Santita. You know, sometimes you cannot explain something because they're inexplicable. It's incomprehensible, the uneven application of the immigration laws as it relates to Haitian immigrants and Black and brown people, depending upon what their place of origin is. Haiti has had this challenge, I want to say, as long as I've been alive. I've seen this inconsistent racist policy being enacted on Haitians that seek asylum here for very similar reasons as other people from other countries seek asylum. I think Robert brought out a very ironic but important distinction when you had Haitians and Cubans at the same time trying to seek asylum for similar reasons into the United States. One group being denied, another group being allowed in, and one group actually people being deported back, sent back, or sent to some other countries where they would face similar fate to the fate that they were escaping. So, Santita, it's not, we can't make sense of it. What we can say is there continues to be an uneven and racially charged application of the immigration laws in this country. And that is just deplorable. It's not changing. No matter what's happening, it's simply not changing. And that is what we need to look at. What is it going to take to change? We do have, Vice President Kamala Harris. We do have all of these well-positioned Caribbean Americans who we know have made it very important, a priority. They've articulated that they want to have change in terms of that policy, but it's not happened. The Biden administration's policy as it relates to Haitians is the same as the Trump administration's policy. And there's something inherently wrong, unfair, unjust about that. But that's where we are, Santita.
But this is where you see, Reverend Jackson has talked about one party, two different, two different heads, but one body, one party. Because anytime the Democrats and Republicans come together to kill the agenda items that the Senate Budget Chairman, Bernie Sanders, was putting forth, there's something about this that lets you know it's a transpartisan policy. That ought to be transparent to everyone. Before I go to Brian from Joliet, and I want you to call us at 773-763-9278. I want to hear from you, Attorney Darrell Jones. What do you make of this? And 1 year from January of 2021 to February of 2022, 20,000 Haitians were sent back to Haiti by our government under the Biden administration.
And Santita, I think that what CK and what Reverend would say, lay this out best. And that, this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue, right? This is a racial issue. And this is the part that it shows where, race transcends party when it comes to this. And it's just deplorable. It's unimaginable that that many Haitian immigrants have been returned back to the horrible conditions from which they've been escaping. And it's one of those things where, we're coming off the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And I can recall the big statement from then President Lyndon Baines Johnson to Martin Luther King Jr. when asked about the Voting Rights Act to say, make me do it. Right? Why is it when it comes to African Americans or blacks and policy that we've got to make both sides of the partisan divide do what's right? And that's really frustrating that we've got to make them do what's right. They know what the right thing to do. They know the disparate treatment that they're dispelling and putting off on these immigrants that are coming in and escaping just squalor and horrible conditions in Haiti. But they won't do the right thing unless we force them to do it. And that's not a position that we should always have to be in, is forcing whatever party that's in power to do the right thing when it comes to the Haitian, to do the right thing when it comes to black people in the world that want to come to the United States. That's a horrible position for us to be in. But as we always do, we put on our marching shoes and we go and do it. But it's not right that whenever black issues are at the forefront, we've got to force them to do that which is right, Santita. And it's really, really fires me up, just that whole concept and all the mistreatment that the Haitians have received in trying to come to shore here, jumping off the boat, getting in the water. They get them out of the water to gather them and put them, send them back to Haiti, as well as getting them on the boats. This is just horrible. It's horrible. And as CK said, it goes back what Robert said. It goes back to the imagery of those white men on horseback, the Border Patrol on horseback that would gather them up. It's just horrible imagery, and it's a horrible policy that's got to be addressed.
And, it's an ongoing policy. Democrats, Republicans, it's an ongoing policy. And we have made Haiti pay. We have made them pay for being free. And they literally had to pay the French. But, the slave masters in the United States got reparations too. So you can't make this stuff up, and you need to know your history so you can understand what's going on. Let me go to Brian from Joliet. Call us at 773-763-9278. Brian, what's on your mind today, sweetie?
Good morning, all. I hope you're doing all well.
Thank you.
And I'm just calling in because I heard a report on CNN earlier this morning that thousands of Haitian children are facing starvation.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that the late Senator Edward Kennedy occasionally would say he would never accept the thesis that a child born in the United States is worth any more or less than a child born in any other country. And we should act very vigorously upon this matter as much as we are in relation to Ukraine. And that's all I have to say.
Well, now, aren't you an enlightened soul? Thank you so much for that, because that's true. That's true. I mean, look, I compare their situation to that of those of our brothers and sisters who are coming in from Ukraine, because we should. Because we don't have an even policy, Robert. We don't. And it is a color-coded policy. Let's just keep it real. And you cannot do that. And we're the ones who have to acknowledge it. Now, this is not a top-of-the-line story in corporate media, but it's going to be a top-of-the-line story here. Just like losing money in our public schools. Well, I don't care what your priorities are. My priorities are educating my children, and people who need asylum in the United States, they ought to be allowed to come here. Now, if I'm going to do that for Europeans, I'm going to do that for all people from all over the world. And that's what needs to happen. But it's not happening, Robert Patillo. I mean, there's the detention. I'm with CK. Now, when we were kids, they were detaining. They were putting Haitians in cages in Florida. That was something Reverend Jackson went down to deal with Father Jean Juste and Father Aristide. These are people who stayed in our home, in my parents' home, fighting for the Haitian community. I mean, this is awful. And I know the Catholic Church can say something about this, Robert Patillo. But where are they? Where are they? Where is the Pope on this? Where is he? They have some of the biggest banks in the world. They're a country. Come on now, Robert.
We're all approaching this as if this is a flaw in the system. This is the system operating exactly as intended. This is the punishment that you have for fighting back against the Western colonial and slavery system. This is the way that you are treated. This is a message to every other country around the world. That if you revolt against one of the great powers, as they call it, the liberal world order, as you'll hear all the Western leaders talk about so often, this is a message to all downtrodden and enslaved and colonized people around the world that the price for freedom is centuries and centuries and centuries of economic and social unrest. Because at the end of the day, as the caller said, Haiti was at one point in time, I want people to remember, the richest colony in all of the Americas. It is the most fertile land in all of the Americas. It grows more food per hectare than almost anywhere in the world, yet the people starve. It's not because the people don't know how to farm. It's not because they don't have the resources. It's because the colonial powers have decided that that island is going to suffer for standing up against French slavery. We've seen much of the same in decolonized Africa. Yes, the colonial powers left, but they wanted to make sure to punish all of those countries for them leaving. We saw the same thing in Southeast Asia. Oh yeah, we'll leave, but y'all are going to suffer for standing up against and fighting back against the Europeans or the British or the French or the Dutch or the Americans. And right now what Haiti is going through, people treat the island somehow as cursed. No, the curse is the Western powers executing a 250-year-long basically economic blockade against the island, kidnapping presidents, having the military of the United States both invade and occupy the island for over 20 years, controlling all trade that can happen, controlling all foreign policy that can happen, to ensure that everyone else sees what the results are. You stand up against the colonial powers. You might win the battle, but in the long run, we will ensure that your people will suffer. And there is no lack of attention to the fact, particularly in the immigrant community, that when Putin invades Ukraine, they send planes to bring 100,000 Ukrainians over to America, no questions asked. When America pulls out of Afghanistan, they send planes to pick up tens of thousands of refugees and bring them to America. But when America is involved, many people believe in the political instability that takes place in Haiti, there's absolutely no even conversation of asylum taking place. Even when we talk about the quote-unquote deportation of Haitians back to Haiti, many people left after the hurricane, or after the earthquake, rather, over a decade ago and haven't lived in Haiti in over a decade, and they're deporting them back to a country they haven't lived there in decades.
Hold that thought. We're going to talk about that on the other side of the break on the Santita Jackson Show. Thank you, CK. Sending you much love, girl. I'd forgotten that you were leaving.
Yes, I do have to run, but this is a great conversation, and y'all are in phenomenal hands, and this is going to be ongoing, so I'm sure we're going to continue to talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
So I will catch up with you a bit later, my dear.
Okay. Bye, CK.
All right. Bye-bye, Robin and Daryl. Okay.
Bye, CK. Everybody, we're so glad we're back up on Facebook, everybody. So our conversations are now back up on Facebook and YouTube. It's taken 5 months. But I'm so glad we're back. Wow. So glad we're back. And everybody, I'm so glad that you all stuck with the show. Thank you so much. I've missed seeing your names. I was about to say your faces, your names. I've missed that. But I've also, I'm seeing new people, and so that's a wonderful thing. So glad to be with you. Sending you much love. Dave, I lost my Aunt Evelyn over the weekend. Whew, I can't even imagine. I've known her all of my life. She was married to my Uncle Chuck, and she's the mother of my cousins, Lisa, Reggie, and Najma. And wow. Last week she said, I don't want to do this anymore. She'd been fighting cancer 33 years. And she knew it was time to go. Almost a week to the day, she got on out of here. And I've known her all of my life. I've known my Aunt Evelyn. Boy, oh boy. Oh, my Aunt Evelyn. Beautiful Aunt Evelyn. Bless her heart. And praying for my Uncle Chris today. He said, I don't know what I'm going to do without her. Bless his heart. He was a wonderful, wonderful human being. Wonderful human being. So there we go, everybody. We have these transitions in life. We have them. But appreciate everybody in your life while they're here. Please do that. Because we're not here long. Just appreciate people and tell people that you love them. That's important. That's really important to tell people that you love them. And mean it, as my Aunt Irene used to say. It means so much. You see that the fights that you have with people, they just don't even matter anymore. They really, really don't. You don't even care about them. Because it really is about the love that you have for people. It really, really is. So, everybody, and I'm going to keep on going because that's just where we are. Wow. So, but I'm glad to hear your voices today, Attorney Jones and Attorney Patillo. Thank you so much for being with us today. But I want you to pick up on that point, Robert, and thank you for sending that to me. Because in our space, Daryl, and Robert, we are the ones we have to make these issues matter to us.
60 seconds.
We're the ones, we have to have our own headlines. Emmett Till was a headline created by us. It was not created by the white press and the corporate press. We made him an issue. So
And Santita, yeah, I'm down in Georgia, so I'm going
I
to
want
be.
you to. Oh, I want you to
walking
do
off
that
to a press
update.
conference shortly.
Okay, I need you to do that update when we get to the just. Do you have to leave right after this? After you do the update?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
No worries. And then I'll pivot back to you, Robert.
Ten seconds.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820 in Chicago, the largest progressive talk radio station in the nation, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. But we have people listening from all over the country and all over the world. And I want you to like and share. Those of the morning stars who are there, in fact, we're back up on the air, everybody. Please like and share the show with at least one person today. Please do that. Let people know about the show. And those of you who are listening in Radio Land, please tell people about the show. Let's spread the word. Let's spread the word. Before we get back to you, Robert, as we've been talking about the detention of Haitian asylum seekers, they're looking for asylum, just as our brothers and sisters from the Ukraine, they're looking for asylum. People from all over the world are looking for asylum here. We are, with all of the challenges that America has, we are a beacon unto the world. We are. We really, really are. That's why we have to, I don't care what the founding fathers meant originally. It's just like the Bible. What we got from the text of the Constitution was that we are all created fair. We are equal, each one of us. I don't care what their original thoughts were. They were enlightened men for their time, not for all time. So let's get with the program here. You can't just let white people into America and then tell brown and black people to get back. What do they say? When you're white, you're all right. When you're yellow, you're mellow. When you're brown, stick around. When you're black, get back. That's a saying that we have in the black community because of colorism, and in the Latino community and every place else. But that's also American policy, and it needs to stop. Either we're going to be a sanctuary for everybody in the world or for no one. It is really that simple. But, before we get back to you, Robert Patillo, I want to hear from you, Attorney Daryl Jones, because you and Barbara Arnwine are in Brunswick, Georgia. You were down there with Ahmaud Arbery's family when no one was there. When no one was there, when no one cared, when it was when it was quite frankly, when it was off the radar. I'm not going to say that people didn't care. We didn't know. But, because this is what you do all the time. You advocate for us, for the least of us. You have been in for, wow. It's been for years, it feels like, more than a year. So you're back down there to why?
Yeah, Santita. We're back down in Brunswick, Georgia today because this morning we're going to have the sentencing for the federal hate crime with the McMichaels and William Roddy Bryan, who just killed young Ahmaud Arbery while he was out jogging. So today is the federal sentencing for the determination of what they should now do to the three of them. What should be their sentence? And what the issue really becomes down here for the sentencing is that what Travis McMichael and Gregory McMichael, his dad, as well as William Roddy Bryan, are trying to do is they want to get into the federal system, the federal sentencing system, to sit there in their bureau in prisons to be held for the rest of their lives for the most part. The belief being that if they can get into the federal system, it will not be as difficult for them. It will not be as hard for them. It will not be as harsh for them as it will in a Georgia state prison. And that's the big issue of what's going on today, is whether or not the judge will sentence them, and then run their sentences concurrent or consecutive, and what sentence will run first, what time will run first. That's what's happening right now in Georgia and Brunswick, Georgia, with the Ahmaud Arbery trial. And it's a huge question that's out there. And of course, the Arbery family does not want any type of leniency expressed to any of the three of them, the same way there was no leniency or respect that was given to Ahmaud Arbery when they hunted him down and so savagely killed him.
But, you know, look, not even an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. They're just wrong. They're murderers, period, right? So where do you see this? Well, you know, we can't predict. And, of course, I need you to come back on tomorrow to let us know what the sentencing was and to explain it. But what are you hearing? What are you seeing? Because, I mean, what is happening with the prosecutor who tried to cover up the murder as it happened, who told them literally, go home and clean yourselves off. We'll take care of this. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. And that's the wildest part.
Yeah.
You know, Santita, that's Jacqueline Johnson was the state's attorney of Glenn County, which was the county where Ahmaud Arbery was killed. And upon his killing, Gregory McMichael, who is the father of Travis McMichael, who was the shooter that killed Ahmaud Arbery, called the state's attorney and told them that they had killed somebody and that they needed some help. And she got involved in having the police stand back, to stand down, and to not make an arrest, to allow them to go home. They were not placed under arrest. And it wasn't but for the efforts of the Arbery family that the film came out, the video finally came out, and that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations had to take over that investigation. And within days after they were getting involved, they made the arrest. However, Jacqueline Johnson has now been indicted. She's been charged, arraigned, with regards to her role in not carrying out her duty, her due diligence as the elected state's attorney for Glenn County. Interestingly, though, Santita, it's been over a year. And her case has not come to trial, and the Georgia Bureau and the Georgia prosecutors, state prosecutors, now have the case. But for some reason, there's no traction. There's nothing that's happening. There's no date scheduled for her to go in to be arraigned and everything else that should be happening at this point. And so, you know, we're not losing sight of this. And we're going to be lifting that back up. We're going to finish off the three killers of Ahmaud, and then we're going to focus full attention on Jacqueline Johnson, and getting her prosecuted here in Glenn County, Georgia.
Well, we have to continue to talk about her. And tomorrow, if you would, I need you to talk. We need to talk about her, who she is and what she did.
Absolutely.
We need to talk about her because we do not know. I mean, because this lets you know just all of the corruption that's in the system. See, I'm telling you, I support prosecutors. I support police. I support the people in the system who do their jobs in a way that really creates justice in America. But I cannot support this corruption. I cannot support a person who holds a position of public trust. Her friend, who is a former police officer, says, "Hey, I killed somebody. And she tells you to go home and shower. Are you serious? I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, this belongs on. See, this never makes it on the police television shows on TV. Okay, because the police are always the heroes. Because that's also, we're being propagandized. We're being softened up all the time. But you don't want to talk about the awful things that happen every day. Taking the cameras out of the courtroom so you cannot see what happened with Jussie Smollett. There was a lawyer in that case. One of his lawyers said that the judge lunged at her, but the judge had the cameras turned off, so you don't know. Somebody had a camera running. See, I mean, so, you know, we have to start asking questions, and I bring all of this to you, everybody, so you can start thinking for yourself. If you want to have a republic and you don't want a monarchy, you have to think for yourself and you have to be involved. You have to register and vote. You have to get involved. You can't let someone run this system for you. Otherwise, they will run you into the ground. You're the one who makes the change. Dr. King didn't always have 250,000 people walking behind him. It was a few hundred people who changed the world. That's the way it happens. It was one woman on a bus who said, "I'm not moving." You're the one who has to do it. Stop waiting for someone else to do it for you. If they do it for you, they own you. Stop it. I can't wait to speak with you in the morning. Attorney Daryl Jones. Give our love to Attorney Barbara Arnwine. But I'm sure you'll be talking about this on your radio show on WOL tomorrow at 12 noon. How are you going to do that? Are you going to break away and talk about it tomorrow?
We always find a way.
All right. The wonders of digital technology. But absolutely. But we'll have you on tomorrow to talk about this, to let us know what happened. But we need to talk about this prosecutor. We really need to know who she is and what she did. I need you to walk us through, Attorney Daryl Jones, what she did on the day, just in the moments after Ahmaud Arbery had been killed with that hole blown in his body. Yeah,
absolutely.
And people need to send pictures of that out. You need to see it. It's a horrible thing. Horrible thing. Sending you much love, and please be safe and be careful down there. And can't wait to speak with you in the morning.
Okay, we'll speak to y'all then. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Robert Patil, you're in the South. Let me tell you, I mean, you are from part of your experience. You experienced life in America as a Black person, as a Black man. But you also experienced life as a Black immigrant, as an immigrant and as a Black immigrant. What is the difference between the white immigrant experience and the Black immigrant experience, particularly as experienced by Haitians? Because Africans have yet another experience. Haitians, it's a little different, Robert, or am I misreading this?
Oh, you're not misreading it at all. I think particularly if you look at the latter half of the 20th century, that America welcomed European immigrants with open arms. If you look at the last administration saying, well, why can't we have more immigrants from Norway? And then trying to purchase Greenland. You know, when they put those inscriptions, tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to be breathe free. They're talking about from Europe. And this is in large part because of the population decline that's taking place with regards to white birth rates. They identified this after the baby boom, that they would need more white people immigrating to the country in order to maintain a racial balance. Many people forget this, but after the Mexican-American War, America had the opportunity to annex all of Mexico, all the way down to Central America. They part of the treaty that they were proposing was for America to take over all of Mexico. But they decided against that because they did not want to bring that many Mexicans into America because it would mess up the political and racial demographics of the country. Basically, America would have been more Mexican than white, and because of that, they decided not to annex the entire country. This pervades into U.S. policy all the way until today. As we've seen, there's been no issues in the 90s when it came to bringing in white refugees from the Balkans, from Kosovo, from Serbia, from the dissolving of Yugoslavia. We've seen the same thing in Ukraine, where there have been over 100,000 at this point in time. I think we stopped counting the number of Ukrainian refugees that we've expedited the processing of them coming here to the United States of America. We saw this in Southeast Asia after the disastrous wars there, where America had no issue bringing over Korean immigrants after the Korean War, Vietnamese immigrants, Chinese defectors. They are welcome with open arms here in the United States of America. But when it comes to Haitian migrants, to African migrants, to Latin American migrants, South American migrants, America has a policy of building walls. At one point in time, their edict to the Coast Guard wasn't even to rescue boats in distress coming from Haiti, but let them sink instead. America, till this day, regardless of a Republican or a Democratic administration, still has a continual policy of maintaining white racial hegemony in the United States of America. That's dictated through the immigration system. And we can talk about all the pretty words we want, all the campaign sloganeering that we want, but when it comes down to it, the proof is in the pudding. And when we see the plane loads of people from white countries coming to America, welcomed in open arms, giving supportive housing, connected to nonprofit organizations that can help them with their transition, and then when we see the way that Haitian Americans are treated as if they are some kind of virus coming to the coast of America, and part of the issue is that we use the media apparatus in this country to propagandize immigration. We're seeing what's happening in the border where Governor Abbott in Texas is busing migrants to Washington, D.C. into New York as if they are some sort of burden on society. We propagandize immigration to the point that even Black Americans reject immigrants, that even other immigrants reject immigrants once they get a foothold here in America from Black countries and from Latin American and South American countries. We have to start looking at people as humans, not based upon race, not based upon national origin, but people who are in need. And instead of the American policy being that if it fits our political purposes, we'll help, and if it doesn't, we'll let you die, we have to fix that system, because at the end of the day, the system still upholds white supremacy on a daily basis, and we are complicit in it if we don't attempt to change it.
There's no question. I think we have to, that's a conversation that we need to have about Black Americans and our brothers and sisters who immigrate from other parts of the world, the Black immigrants. Because what burns Black people up, as you heard former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, say to Caribbean Americans, the Black Caribbean community, you're different. You're different than Black Americans. You don't have all that baggage. And they say it to Africans too. And that is something that is profoundly insulting to Black people who are descended from slaves in this country. We don't mind. We don't want to talk about Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines. We don't want to do that because you all beat the French. But what we don't want to do, we'll talk about every experience in the world, but what's happened here in the United States of America. We are loath to discuss it. And so what we do is bury the Black American experience. And so I think for Black Americans, the resistance comes from that space. Now, it could be coming from other spaces, to be fair. But I know when I hear people talking, I hear how the games that are being played with all of us to set us off against each other. Because you say, Nigerian Americans, there are more of them who are doctors. There, the Black immigrants who come here, they come here and they go straight to the top. Well, they play a lot of games, because when my parents were in college 60 years ago, the Black students who came in from other parts of the world, in order to skirt the Jim Crow laws, they would wear their indigenous dress. And then they were allowed to go to the movie theaters and sit on the main floor, when my parents would have to go upstairs if they chose to do that. So you see what I'm saying? So they're games that are played to set us off against each other. And at the heart of that game, Robert, is the unwillingness of Americans to talk about slavery. You hear Americans who've been here a generation or two say, I have nothing to do with slavery. Oh, no, darling, you have everything to do with it. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Because you came to a country that was not built by immigrants. It was built by enslaved people. And then immigrants were brought in to build on top of that. That's real. And that's what we have to deal with. Yes.
Well, part of it is, and I've made this analogy on my show today, or before,
which is on WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time on Sundays. Yes. Got to put the plug in. Got to do that.
Absolutely. And for the Santita listeners who've been calling into my show recently, we really appreciate you. We really like having the diversity of thought and conversations that comes from having people from all over the country calling in. But America teaches our history as if America is a space station floating above Earth, that we're disconnected, just looking down on everyone else. And I simply put, is not the case. The Black American experience can be very closely encapsulated within the broader anti-colonial struggle around the world. Mm-hmm. To give you an example, when America was fighting their civil war in the 1860s, if you look at what was happening in Europe, you have the German unification, you have French unification, you have these same anti-colonial struggles and fights for nationalism that were taking place in Germany and Italy. Also, the fight for nationalism was the American Civil War taking place in the South. The same global struggle. When we're talking about slavery, you can the same time that we were working our way out of slavery in 1865, we saw the European European colonial power scrambling for Africa in 1869. When we were fighting for civil rights here in America, that was the exact same time in the 1960s.
Absolutely.
That Angola and Vietnam and Korea were all fighting for their freedom there. We're all part of the same struggle. The difference is that American propaganda and American quote-unquote education and history decides to chop us up and turn us against each other, because if we see ourselves as part of the same anti-colonial struggle, then that means we can unite across these artificially created European lines, which is what we allow to separate us currently. Even if you look at the George Floyd Freedom Summer, we were marching for George Floyd here, but at the same time, they were marching in Hong Kong.
Absolutely.
They were marching in Tibet. They were marching in Iran, because it's part of the same anti-colonial struggle against European oppressive governments. So the reason that we have this friction between Black communities and Black immigrant communities is because we allow someone else to set us up against each other to fight. One of my radio mentors, Lorraine Jacques White, she was on the reality show, The Preachers of Atlanta, one of the early reality shows, and she told me one time that what they would do is take the women in different rooms, tell them a bunch of stuff about the other women. Some of it was true, most of it wasn't. Then put them in a room, turn a camera on, and wait for them to start fighting. That's exactly what they do to various minority groups to turn us against each other. And instead of talking about our shared history and our shared fight and our same struggle, because at the same time, if we're going to learn about Dr. King in schools, we need to be learning about Lumumba. We need to learn about Mugabe. We need to learn about Mubarak. We need to learn about Selassie. We need to learn about Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, because they're all part of these same anti-colonial struggles. If we put those into the same context and realize they're within the same continuum, then we stop fighting each other and we fight the colonial powers. So this is the propagandizement that separates us and causes us to fight each other.
And Gandhi and Chavez, you can just keep on going, and Castro and these freedom fighters.
Ho Chi Minh, Mao Zedong.
Absolutely. That's why, we have maintained on this show, and in our space of thinking, Robert, when Ukraine happened, I said, no, the global South isn't going to feel the same way about this, and we need to deal with that. And were we right? Absolutely. And so, but we have got to, we have to embrace each other's struggles. One of the things that my parents saw, and I saw it play out in my childhood, my parents went to school with the freedom fighters. And Dr. King knew the freedom fighters because they really preceded my parents at Black colleges. They went to Black colleges. They went to Lincoln University. They went to Howard University. They went to Black colleges and connected with the Black community here. And we have to do that. But you know what? We all need to, as Americans, we all need to be connected to freedom fighters everywhere. Because we fought England, which was the greatest colonial power in the history of the world up to that point. We did that. Americans did it. But because Black, white, and brown, and yellow, and red came together, and poor came together, then the powers that be here said, well, now we can't have these people fighting with one another, fighting together, because then they're going to fight us. Because we still want an oligarchy. We just don't want a monarchy. This is what we've got. So we've got to stop fighting each other, everybody. We've got to stop it. We've got to start fighting for one another and fighting to get our public schools funded so that every child can get access, equal access to equal high quality education that is academic or vocational. Everybody's not academically inclined, and everybody's not vocationally inclined. Everybody's not artistic. Everybody is not athletic. These charter schools are bumping out our athletic stars, our athletic talent, so that they can go to Africa and not pay them much. So they can go to South and Central America and not pay these athletes much. That was what Hugo Chavez pushed up against. He pushed up against Major League Baseball. They hated him because he said, if you're going to come to my country and get these young people, you're going to pay them some money because they might not make it to the major leagues. We need to start thinking, everybody. Thinking. And we need to be thankful for the fact that we are in America where we have the right to fight for the right, to fight for the right. And we need to fight for each other, period. I love you, Robert Patillo. Thank God for you and your brilliance, everybody, on WAOK every Sunday. I've got to get back on your show. When are you going to have me on? You have Reverend on all the time. You never have me on.
Let's have you on Sunday. You'll have fun with our interesting callers, if nothing else.
Oh my gosh, I was like half kidding, but I'll do it. But but I love it. But stay right here because we're on Facebook, and I want to talk with you just for a couple minutes before you run and do the things that you've got to do for Rainbow Push Day. Of course, he's the Southeastern Regional Director. Thank you, Devin, for a great show. Thank you for getting us back up. WCPT, led by Jim Addy and company, and Mark Pinsky and Matt and Justin. I want to thank you. Jim is always trekking out to my home to try and work things out. I want to thank him for as soon as he put the audio card in, he said, I think we've got a winner, Santita, and you're right. So God bless you and thank you, everybody. Stay right here for more of the Santita Jackson Show. We're going to talk a little bit more. About all the things that we've been talking about, Haiti and public schools and everything else on the Santita Jackson Show. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow. God bless you. Robert, what have we left out? What do you want people to know?
Well, what I want people to know is that this policy can change. Think about what we saw after Roe versus Wade was overturned. Within 2 weeks, there was an executive order doing everything the federal government could to protect abortion rights. We saw a $1.7 trillion infrastructure bill passed when they said there was no chance of bipartisan support. We saw the skinny Build Back Better bill passed this weekend, where they said, well, there's no way we can get Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema on board. Well, they got them on board, and it's not the $6 trillion that Bernie Sanders wanted. It's $700 billion. But, $700 billion is better than the nothing you had before. But they were able to make that work. They were able to pull out of Afghanistan after 20 years. They've been able to hold back Putin. People thought that would be a 3 to 5 day invasion. We are in day 200 of that invasion because America had to resolve to do so. So don't tell me that we can't fix the immigration system when it comes to Haitian Americans, when it comes to migrants from the South, because at the end of the day, the only thing propping America up as a quote-unquote first world country is our immigration system. The same people who treat immigrants as if they are some kind of pox on our nation, some kind of burden on our nation. Find out what would happen if you had to pay U.S. labor prices for the people who are picking your food in the fields right now. But when you get that first $12 avocado, you'll realize, well, maybe immigration is not that bad of an idea. Imagine the hotel rooms that you stay in if it wasn't for immigrants who are willing to work in those rooms to clean them, and we had to try to get your millennial kids to put down their phones and their TikToks in order to clean hotel rooms. That's the food service industry. If you look in the back of almost any 5-star, Michelin star kitchen in the country, you're going to find immigrants working in those kitchens. So we have to start treating them in accordance with their value to our society and stop putting politics into it to the point that at the exact same time 330 Haitian migrants are found, they arrest them, and 150 Cuban migrants are found, and they are processed into the country under the wet foot, dry foot policy. I don't think anybody can justify that. But until the some administration makes this a priority to fix, we're going to continue seeing the exact same thing over and over again.
I agree with that. No one, I couldn't say it better myself. I couldn't. I mean, the fact is, we're going to have to make some decisions about letting everybody be in or having everybody ultimately be out. The injustice that has been visited upon Black people, now white people are beginning to feel it. And Robert, when they hire these 86,000 new IRS agents, get ready for the audit, sweetheart. It's coming. You know it's coming. If you're going to say anything, I got something from the IRS not too long ago. I said, oh, okay, I got it. Well, I'm not mad at y'all. I know you function. Dr. King lived under audit all of his life. All of it. He just, he lived under audit, under government harassment. So, as I'm watching the corporate media, Joe Biden back from what? He's back. Okay. So okay. I got it. He's back. In the meantime,
it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that during Biden's "quote unquote" best week ever, all the negative things that they feel that are weighing down on the administration still are all the things that somehow involve Black folks. That even during the best week ever, you're not able to get Brittany Griner back. You're deporting Haitian migrants. I'm not quite sure the instant impact of the $700 billion bill, what that will have on minority communities. Of course, I support the environment. You have to put that disclaimer out there. But if you are talking to Black and brown communities around the country that need help right now, saying, well, we're going to put $700 billion into something that's going to help you in 10 years, that's not what those people want to hear. So, yes, the great things happen this week, but at the same time, you have to actually do the things for the communities you're going to be going to after Labor Day, begging for their votes. They are going to be in North Miami and in Little Haiti, begging for the votes of Haitian Americans to beat Marco Rubio. And the only thing they're going to have to show for it are Haitians being chased on horseback and their boats being put back out to sea. I'm going to be interested to see their compelling messaging throughout to work their way around that.
Well, I want to see it too. I want to know how much money they're putting into Val Deming's campaign. How much money, how much energy? I don't see it.
And then also the corporate media hasn't been covering her campaign
at all.
I say this all the time, that it's amazing to me that President Trump has been out of office 2 years, and he holds one of these monster truck rallies every weekend. I think there was a rally this Saturday. I think it was in Wisconsin, somewhere like that. 10, 15,000 people, lights, cameras, all the conservative celebrities, singers, airplane flyovers, all that. That's how they campaign for their candidates. When it comes to Democrats, you're on your own. If you can get 4 or 5 people in a room and a camera, that's about the best you can hope for. And I don't understand why Democrats don't get into their minds that optics matter, that mass support matters. You can pass all the legislation you want, but if you don't tell people about it, they're not going to know. That's why you're looking at these low poll numbers, because you do a terrible job of selling to the American people what you're doing. And also some of your policies, such as immigration policy, are just completely incongruent, and you're trying to hide those things, and that's why you don't want to be out there in front of the people.
Well, they already know this. They're not dumb. They're not dumb. They know. They know. What they do is, look, Democrats and Republicans have a tacit agreement to hold this system together. Okay, let's just keep it 100. Okay, and so the Democrats have one cultural appeal, Republicans have another cultural appeal, but they're all upholding together the corporatocracy. Okay, that's what they're doing. And more, that's why more and more people are neither. The plurality of Americans are independent. They might skew to the left, they might skew to the right, but they are independent because they look at both parties and go, oh, please, like I do. I'm a registered Democrat because in Chicago, when my brother was in Congress, the only way I'd be able to vote for him, I couldn't vote for him as an independent. I would have to be registered to a party, to the Democratic Party, in order to vote for him. I'm like, well, I'm going to vote for my brother, so I'll be a Democrat. I'll do that. But I'm just very clear that they're playing games. They're playing games with people, and they're playing games with you. They're playing games with me. That's why no one is digging down on this infrastructure bill. Would someone ask the question, what are 86,000? 86,000. 50 states, that breaks down to that breaks down to 17.2 thousand agents per state. What are they going to do, Robert? 86,000 new agents? Are you for real? Are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, it's interesting where they're saying, well, they're only going to be going after rich people.
Oh no, they're not.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely trust you. Not like you ever lied to me before. I can completely believe that you're hiring all these people just to go after rich people. They're going to be going after small business owners. They're going to be going after anybody who. We all know one thing about our system: the house always wins. The rich people, at the end of the day, will always come out on top. And so when they already have lawyers going through every piece of this tax law. try to figure out how they can make sure they don't have to pay any of this tax law. And so these agents are going to be going after mom and pop stores, small businesses, individuals who tried to file their own taxes and didn't understand the system and just made legitimate mistakes, those sorts of things. So we're going to see that in the upcoming years. I recommend everybody just go ahead and get an accountant in your family now. They always say you need a doctor, a lawyer in the family. We need an accountant in the family too now, because they're going to be going after us.
Absolutely. And guess what? You better know who your accountant is, better understand their politics. Hello. I mean, it's all of that, because your accountant can jam you too. Seen that happen. Because the head money man at SELC, it turns out he was an FBI informant. They found that out right after Dr. King was killed. So it's like, come on. I've just seen so much, you guys, and I share these stories with you. And you've talked to me about my stories, so I've started writing them down so I can publish them. Just, I got a lot of them. And the Lord allowed me to live through them so that I could share them. I do believe that. I really, really do. But I saw 86,000 agents. I said, really? 86,000? That's not for rich people. That's for you and me. I got a letter from the IRS a couple of months ago. You owe, I think, $1,400. I was like, really? Okay. All right. And if you don't pay, like, basically in a month, we're going to put it in the papers. I was like, oh, okay. Now, if I didn't have the $1,400, you would just have to put it in the paper. And I would get on and explain, I don't have $1,400. Maybe I should get a GoFundMe page, everybody. I mean, I'm just keeping it 100. I'm like, get out of here. Seriously? Because I have seen them do this all the time, over and over and over and over again. So are you going to be able to go to Brunswick, Georgia? Or I know you'll be watching the case, Robert.
I'll be watching the case. Reverend will be in the very capable hands of Trina, Daryl, and Barbara Arnwine. And I'm going to be working on a little bit of this Griner thing for Reverend. Try to get him on Russian radio this week to make a direct appeal to the Russian people.
Do me a favor, and my math was off, Dave. It's 1,720 per state, but that's still a whole lot of folks. 1,720 per state, 720 per state. That's ridiculous. That having been said, I want you to come back on, because we were going to talk about Brittany today, but just why it is that you are, why you're making, why you are pushing Reverend into Russian media. How is he being received, or is there resistance to his appearance?
Oh, they are more than happy to have him. They are ecstatic to do so, and Reverend very much likes people who like to hear from him, and also being part of the conversation. So it's just a matter of scheduling and working across, an ocean, and also the way that the U.S. is working to block any access to foreign media or even conversations that makes it difficult to coordinate.
Well, would you mind?
I think that.
No, go.
Go ahead.
No, please, because I'd like to have you on tomorrow to talk about that, because people don't know that Reverend's been on Russian media, that you have been pushing him onto Russian media, and more than that, they don't know that he's being received warmly. I think that's important for us to know.
Certainly, I'll be glad to come back tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have an update on when we will have him scheduled to be on by tomorrow.
But if you can just explain that that's happened, because when you shared that with me, I said, oh, really? I didn't know. Because when I talk to my father, I don't talk to him about things like this. I mean, he might mention it, and then we keep on going and talking about other stuff. Because, we've had a death in the family. And then, we have a very dear friend who's been gravely ill, someone who is really family to us. So, we've had a lot going on. So is there anything that we've left on the table? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think we're in a good place, and I'll be back tomorrow for an update.
Please do, because I'm going to get an update from Daryl Jones. I'd like to get an update from you, but like I said, for you to explain what's happening. And, we need to understand, Robert, that we're being propagandized too. And that has to stop, because it's not helping us at all. It's not helping us. So I'm glad we're back up on Facebook, everybody. I'm glad we're back up on YouTube. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, with all of my heart, I thank you for staying with us. Hey, Daniel, how you doing, sweetie? You're right. Of all working people and all people who want to work. How about that? Right? I love you. I love you, everybody. I love you, Robert. And it'll be either at 7:30 or at 8. Because, we just lost $30 million in funding for our schools in Chicago. So there's just, there's a lot going on. Oh, God. Whew. Okay. All right, sweetie. Have a good one.
You too.
Everybody, I love you. Have a great day. Oh, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you. Thank you. My Aunt Evelyn was an absolute gem. She fought a good fight. She fought cancer for 33 years. 33 years. And last week, she just said, no more. No more. And the good Lord took her home and relieved her of her physical suffering. And now she has got those wings. And she was an angel here. She was a teacher. And wonderful, wonderful woman, wonderful wife, wonderful mother. She was a wonderful, wonderful human being. I've known her all my life. She was married to my Uncle Chuck for many years. And then they divorced. But we didn't divorce her. And of course, she's the mother of my cousins by my Uncle Chuck. And then she and my Uncle Chris, who was like a family member to us, they married. And they had their daughter Najma. And I teased Najma and let her know that she's one of those babies who we were like, Mom and Dad, you're having a baby? Really? She and Jackie, my baby sister. So she's my baby cousin Najma, just sending everyone love today. They've all done so well. My cousin Lisa and Reggie, sending all of them love, and sending my Uncle Chris so much love today. He was such a wonderful husband. So wonderful. He took care of my aunt. Ladies, you want a husband like him because he is no one like him. No one like Uncle Chris. No one like Uncle Chris. Chris Hurst. Wonderful, wonderful human being. Love you all, everybody. Have a great day. God bless.